happen because I don't really want to be in an ambulance trucking through traffic and the snow and everything else. Like, God forbid there was like a train that stopped in front of me during a situation where like I needed emergency medical service right away. Hi guys, continuing on from our topic last week, we're going to look at some questions and some general guidelines that I think that people should use when choosing a university or college to go to if you have a disability, because it's not as straightforward as just picking a school based on proximity, academics, things like that. At least for me it wasn't. So I just wanted to give a few questions that you may want to consider asking before deciding what happens for the next 2 to 4 years of your life, and also different ways to find bursaries, grants, and scholarships outside of the government and the ministry. So stay tuned and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I think the first question and the biggest question should be, how big is the school's SAS department? So as we talked about in my previous video, an SAS department is Student Accessibility Services Department, and they're the people that work with the university and college within the school to provide resources for students with disabilities. That includes accommodations, any type of devices or services you need while you're doing your academic career. And not to sound mean about it, but like not all SAS departments are created equal. Some schools will have 50 plus people working in that department helping the students, and other schools, they will have just like 1 or 2 people who are working in that department. And I think that's something you need to take into consideration, like how much like detailed resources and support you'll get if you have a school that has 50 people working for students with disability versus 1 or 2. Another thing you should look into is the campus accessible, and what level of accessibility does the campus have? So unless you're doing an online program, you're going to have to visit the campus, and you're going to have to go around the campus to go to classes, to go to exams, to do all the things that you need to do when you're at university or college. And some campuses are more accessible than others in terms of their layout. Some schools are like wanting to promote people biking or walking everywhere, so they make the buildings so that you can't like drive from one area to another, which is like great for like I think nature and promoting people to be exercising. But if you're using a wheelchair or you're using other mobility devices, it can make it hard to get from one side of the campus to the other, especially during the winter. And even things like when there is a snowfall, how quickly do they plow the roads, the sidewalks, the parking lots? Because I've had this one situation where I was on this one campus and they only plowed the parking lots and that was it. And so I had to like dig my way through the snow, and my classmates had to help me dig through the snow to get to class and to get out of class, because the people who worked at the department that was meant to plow were like, no, like our job only states that we have to plow the parking lots, and so anything else is a you problem, basically. Another important question is, what type of transportation does the school have both on campus and getting to and from campus? Now, similar to the topic before, this might seem like an obvious question, but it's not. Some schools have transportation as in like a bus route to and from campuses. Some schools don't, like especially if they're a rural school versus a school that's in a major city. What is the parking situation like? Because like some schools, they'll have like parking like miles away from the buildings, and other ones will be right next to it and right next to the handicap parking. Is it paid parking? If so, how much is it? Because like that is a huge source of funding for schools nowadays, is to have parking fees and have students pay for a parking pass. And even though like there's bursaries that you can apply for to get transportation to campus if you are a student with disabilities, how about getting around from one building to another? Like I went to Western University for my first degree, and they had accessible busing to get you from one building to another. Just so if you, it was like a massive campus, like it was like acres and acres and acres long, kind of like its own little city. And so if you need to get from one side of campus to the other, like it would take you forever if you were using mobility and like walking or whatnot. But if you have a disability, you can use their on-campus buses specifically for students with disability to get around. So asking things like that about actually getting to campus and getting back from campus, if you're living in residency, how to get around campus, it's important to know the transportation levels. Just like real estate, I feel like university and college, it's all about location, location, location. So in terms of like when I say location, I wanted to say where is the vicinity of the university and college you're going to. For instance, when I decided which school I wanted to go to, it was important to me that there was a hospital near campus or on campus, which Western does have. They have a university like smack dab in the middle of the campus, versus other schools, it might be, I don't know, 30 minutes away, if not longer. And if you're having an emergency, and especially if you live on campus as a student, for me and for my anxiety, it was important to have a location of a hospital nearby in case an emergency happened, because I don't really want to be in an ambulance trucking through traffic and the snow and everything else. Like, God forbid there was like a train that stopped in front of me during a situation where like I needed emergency medical service right away. So think about things like that, about what type of things that you want near you and whether or not those schools provide those services. The most important advice overall when picking the right school for you is to start the process early. The biggest advice I can give to you when picking the right university and college is to start the process early, because trust me, it's going to be a much longer process and a lot less straightforward than their non-disabled counterparts. Like, I know there's a lot of school guides that will tell you the rankings of school based on academia and based on lifestyle and based on atmosphere, but they don't really talk about disability and disability resources. So you have to make that research for yourself. And for me, I started the process when I was 16, knowing that I would not go to university till around 18, 19 years old, because of all of the things that I had to figure out for myself. Luckily, the resources have gotten a lot better since then, and a lot of universities and colleges even have these like transition programs where you can go on campus, stay on campus for a few days, and get the feel of whether or not the school will meet your disability needs. And I highly recommend doing that. But more importantly, I highly recommend going through and doing all the research, even if it's stuff about like bursaries and grants and stuff like that, and different resources that you might need. You have to do the research yourself, and you have to start as early as possible. So now we're going to discuss all the different ways to find bursaries, grants, and scholarships for universities and colleges all throughout Ontario. First things first, contact your SAS counselor. Again, it's very important to get in contact with your SAS department, and specifically your SAS counselor, and that's the counselor that will help you with all the resources and accommodations you need while you're at school there. And they will also be the ones to know what type of grants and bursaries the university has for students with disabilities. Because I've noticed through my experiences and that of my friends that pretty much every department has a bursary or grant for students with disabilities. I've applied for grants under the social work department. I've known people who apply under the engineering department and health side, and so on and so forth. And so when it comes to any scholarships that relate to the school, chances are that your accessibility services counselor will know all of it. Make sure to access my favorite website, disabilityawards.ca. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I love disabilityawards.ca. They're a great database for all things disability-related scholarships. They have all the information on scholarships that are provided through your school, through the ministry, through the federal government, through charities and organizations, through it all. They have that database. So besides your school, make sure to check that out, and even maybe check it out before you decide what school you go to, so you can see which schools have more grants and bursaries and scholarships than others. Make sure to reach out to your local member of parliament, both provincial and federal. Outside of your SAS counselor, your member of parliament is a huge resource when figuring out how to get grants, bursaries, and scholarships for students with disabilities, because they will know all the different government funding. So it's a great resource to have. It's a great resource and connection to make from the get. And talk to them, send them an email, give them a call, and ask them what type of provincial funding and federal funding that you can attain to help you both, pay for school and pay for resources after school. Research local foundations, and specifically foundations that are for people with disabilities and maybe even conditions that are specific to your needs. So if you are diagnosed with a specific condition, I would see if your condition has a foundation related to that specific condition, a specific diagnosis, and chances are that they will have bursaries and grants and scholarships for people who are doing research in that topic or people who have that condition. And that can range everything from like MS, muscular dystrophies, you name it. Like there's different organizations that can provide you with a bursary and grant. And besides being maybe a Canadian citizen, all you have to have is a diagnosis for that condition. And so definitely check out your diagnosis and whether or not there's a foundation linked to it and whether or not that foundation has a bursary linked to it. Last, but obviously not least, look at and discover local clubs. Now there's so many local clubs, like the Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club. They may have bursaries and grants for people in their community. So look at local clubs that are specific to the town that you live in or the city that you live in, and whether or not they provide bursaries and grants, and even some cultural clubs. Like there is this one club in London, Ontario for people who are originally from Africa, and they have bursaries and grants to their population as well. And so these local clubs can be a great resource to get funding and help pay for your university and college career. Well, that's it for the video. Please tell me in the comment section if you found any of these tips and tricks helpful, because I do really think there needs to be resource given on how to pick the right school and how to find the right funding to pay for school. And let me know some of your thoughts in the comment section. And if you would like to see other videos discussing similar topics, next week actually, I'm going to do a whole video on resources for international students with disability coming to study in Canada. So if that applies to you, please check out that video and subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and please share it to anybody that you think that this resource might be helpful for. And I'll see you next week. Bye. For information about all the programs discussed, please check out my website, Ontario Without Barriers, located in the description. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications. Tune in next week where we will discuss other resources for adults with physical disabilities.